Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to Marotta Media. And today's review will be on the latest installment in the Rocky franchise, Creed 3. In Creed 3, we once again follow Adonis Creed, played by Michael B. Jordan. And Donnie is now living the high life after he retires from boxing. But when a childhood friend resurfaces, it's up to Donnie to fight his demons both literally and metaphorically. So in preparation for Creed 3, I rewatched the first Creed from 2015. At the time I watched that movie, I thought it was fantastic, but after revisiting it, I completely forgot how good it was. Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone have phenomenal chemistry with one another, and Ryan Coogler's direction was immaculate. But I had never seen Creed 2 before, so after I finished the first Creed, I watched Creed 2 for the first time. And let me tell you, it left me very underwhelmed. It's not bad, but it's not really good either. It's just okay. It just felt very empty and pointless. I feel like Donnie as a character didn't really progress at all. It didn't really do anything to further his story. It just seemed like a cheap excuse to bring back a villain like Ivan Drago. So I had mixed feelings going into Creed 3. I thought this would either be fantastic or fall flat like Creed 2 did for me. But I'm happy to say that Creed 3 is very, very good, but it's not as good as the first one, but it is leagues better than the second one. So for starters, all three Creed movies have had different directors. The first one was Ryan Coogler, as I just mentioned. The second one was directed by Stephen Caple Jr., who is directing the upcoming Transformers movie. And Creed 3 was directed by Michael B. Jordan. But if I went into this movie blind and you told me that this was Michael B. Jordan's first time directing, I would have said that you're crazy. This is an incredibly impressive directorial debut. Michael B. Jordan had this clear, unique vision for Creed 3, and I think he absolutely pulled it off. He said in interviews that this movie was heavily inspired by anime, and this is especially evident during the actual boxing matches. Now, I won't get into spoilers about the final fight, but that fight especially took a more surreal approach. Once you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the fight scenes as a whole, as they always are the highlight of this movie. And these fight scenes have excellent cinematography. Michael B. Jordan had a very unique vision for how he wanted these fights shot. There's one shot in particular where Donnie gets punched in the stomach and the sweat droplets are rising off of his back as a result of the momentum of the punch. And it just looked so cool. And it's shots like that you could tell were definitely inspired by anime. Now, I'm not a big anime watcher, but I have definitely seen shots similar to that in the anime that I have watched. This series has always had excellent characters, and that's no exception in Creed 3, but Creed 3 really expands on all of them. We've known a little bit about Donnie's past up until this point, but we didn't know a whole lot. But Creed 3 changes that. Right at the beginning, we see more of what he got up to as a kid, because it was established in the first movie that Donnie was a troubled kid and he was in and out of juvie. But in this movie, you find out that he still got into trouble after Apollo Creed's widow adopted him out of juvie. And this is where we meet our new antagonist, Diamond Dame Anderson, played by Jonathan Majors. And as always, with everything that I have seen Jonathan Majors in, he was fantastic in Creed 3. And aside from a fantastic performance from Majors, what made Dame a great antagonist is that you understand him and you sympathize with him. You may not agree with his methods, but you understand where he's coming from. Because it's established early on that Dame had dreams of becoming a boxer himself, but he ended up going to prison indirectly as a result of Donnie's actions. And he even says to Donnie, "I watched all of your fights while I was locked up." So you understand that it must have been hard for him to see his childhood best friend live his dream while he took the fall for him. And I'm just gonna say it, Jonathan Majors was a better antagonist in this movie than he was as Kang in Ant-Man. I will not be taking questions at this time. Moving on. But another character that got a lot more character development and backstory was Donnie's mom, Mary Ann. We learn more about the things that she did for Donnie when he was a kid, and without getting into spoilers, how she was responsible for a rift in Donnie and Dame's relationship. I'm not going to get too deep into what she did, but just know that she did not exactly necessarily think that Dame was a great influence on Donnie, which is made evident because Donnie continued to get in trouble while he was hanging around Dame. But, as I do with most, if not all, movies I watch, I do have some issues with Creed 3. The first being, I found the first act of this movie to be incredibly boring. It starts off very slowly, which I typically don't mind as long as it starts to pick up rather quickly, but I started to get a little bit bored with Creed 3 as it made its way towards its second act. And that's the point of the movie where it really started to get a lot better, but it felt like it took forever to get there. But it's not just that. There are several scenes that feel like they just drag on for way too long. There were quite a few scenes that consisted just of two characters talking to one another, but I felt like everything that needed to be said was said rather quickly, but the characters just continue to talk. It's almost as if they're trying to fill out a word count on an essay. Like, we have the information we need, now let's move on to the next scene, but there are several scenes in Creed 3 that have no concept of that. And another big thing that you probably noticed about Creed 3 is that Rocky, played by Sylvester Stallone, is absent. And this is the first movie in the Rocky universe that Sylvester Stallone has not appeared in. And even though I think the movie held its own without him there, you really feel his absence in several scenes. And I actually just found out the reason he wasn't in this movie wasn't really any fault of his own, nor Michael B. Jordan's, because it seemed like they're still cool with each other. And I won't get into the drama here, I'll just say that the producer and guy who owns the rights to the Rocky franchise is not Sylvester Stallone's favorite person. So as a result, he didn't want to be involved in this movie. And that's why it felt like this movie went purposely out of its way to not even give Rocky a mention. I think he's only mentioned once, and I felt like that was disrespectful, but now that I have some context into the drama and why he's not in the movie, it made a lot more sense. So if the Creed franchise continues, I really hope to see Sylvester Stallone come back in the future, because this movie really missed him. It's like the heart of it was missing. And the last thing I'll say about Creed 3 that I didn't quite like is that it's pretty predictable, as you'd expect it to be. As soon as the conflict is introduced, you know exactly how it's gonna go and how it's gonna conclude. So I guess I was hoping for something a little bit more unpredictable, but that's a nitpick compared to the other things to me. So I can forgive that, because when was the last time you saw a Rocky movie and said, wow, I didn't see that coming? But overall, Creed 3 was a great addition to the Rocky franchise and the continuation of Adonis Creed's story. Like I said, it's not my favorite. The first Creed is far and away the best one, and Creed 3 is in second, and far and away at the bottom is Creed 2. This was a very impressive directorial debut from Michael B. Jordan, and I can't wait to see what he does in the future. And overall, I would give Creed 3 an 8 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Creed 3. If you guys saw this movie, let me know what you thought about it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was the best one in the trilogy? If you guys like this review, be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my previous reviews, I will link those right over here. Oh, and I made another appearance on the Deadhead podcast with my buddies Dylan and Jan. We talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a movie that I did not make a review on, but I gave my somewhat extended thoughts on that movie in the podcast. So if you're interested to hear my thoughts on that, go check it out. We talk about that movie and a multitude of other things. But other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.